WrestleMania 11, the NFL versus WWF showdown. If people remember one thing about that night, it's the WWF throwing a football legend into the main event spotlight. Lawrence Taylor, linebacker for the New York Giants, Hall of Famer, a man who spent his career breaking quarterbacks in half, but had never actually wrestled a pro match in his life. Across the ring was Bam Bam Bigelow, nearly 400 pounds, tattooed flame-covered skull, and somehow moving like a cruiserweight. The story was simple and kind of ridiculous. At the Royal Rumble, Bam Bam got pinned by the 1-2-3 Kid. Taylor laughed. Bam Bam shoved him. And suddenly, Vince McMahon saw dollar signs. Heat turned into hype. The NFL versus WWF. And surprisingly, the match didn't bomb. In fact, it worked. Taylor came in laser-focused, throwing stiff forearms like he was still chasing quarterbacks. He sold exhaustion like a man in a real fight. Meanwhile, Bam Bam did what great wrestlers do. He carried the story, made Taylor look legit, and never stopped being the cocky bully fans love to hate. And then the finish. Taylor climbs the second rope, launches with a flying forearm, crashes down on Bam Bam, and gets the 3. For one night, football beat wrestling. Was Shawn versus Diesel the better wrestling match? Of course. But ask any fan what they remember about WrestleMania 11, and 9 times out of 10, it's Lawrence Taylor shocking the world. WrestleMania 12. The boyhood dream comes true. You can talk about the card, you can mention Undertaker v Diesel, but let's be real. This show belongs to one match. Shawn Michaels versus Bret the Hitman Hart. The very first televised 60-minute Iron Man match for the WWF Championship. Bret Hart, the established champion, the excellence of execution. A man who could wrestle circles around just about anyone. Then you've got Shawn Michaels, the cocky daredevil, flying all over the place, hungry for his very first WWF championship. The build sold it perfectly. The ultimate wrestling test. 2 of the best in the world. 1 hour. Most falls win. No excuses. No shortcuts. Just pure wrestling. The match itself was a slow burn masterpiece. They didn't fly through spots. They wrestled with patience, constantly jockeying for position. Bret picked Shawn apart, grinding down his back and legs to cut off the speed. Shawn would explode back with bursts of aerial offense the second Bret gave him an inch. And then, the shocker. The full 60 minutes went by with 0 falls. None. A WrestleMania main event ending 0-0. Nobody saw that coming. Bret thought he was walking out with the title. But WWF President Gorilla Monsoon steps in and calls for sudden death overtime. The crowd's buzzing. Within minutes, Bret charges. Shawn vaults, and bam! Sweet chin music. Bret crumbles. Shawn reloads, hits it again for good measure. 1, 2, 3. The bell rings. Howard Finkel makes it official. And then Vince McMahon, on commentary, drops the immortal line. The boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels. WrestleMania 13, the double turn that changed everything. Forget the official main event. This card belongs to one match. Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, in a submission match that many fans swear lit the fuse on the Attitude Era. The build was pure tension. On one side, Austin, brash, foul-mouthed, a brawler who couldn't care less about respect or tradition, calling out Bret as a dinosaur. And then there's Bret, desperate to prove he was still the man, still the technical master, still the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. From the opening bell, it was a street fight. They tore through the crowd, bounced each other off guardrails, and used anything they could get their hands on. Bret was cold and calculated, zeroing in on Austin's leg like a surgeon. Austin fought like a rabid dog, swinging chairs, throwing wild punches, doing anything to stay in it. And then came the moment that burned itself into wrestling history. Bret locks in the sharpshooter. Austin's face a crimson mask, blood pouring down and dripping onto the mat. The crowd is deafening. Austin screaming in pain, straining, trying to push up, trying to break free. And then, he fades. No tap out, no surrender. He simply passes out. Ken Shamrock calls the match. And here's where everything flipped. The fans, who came in booing Austin, were on their feet cheering him. Bret, instead of being celebrated, snapped. He attacked Austin after the bell and the boos rained down. In one night, the roles were reversed. Bret became the villain, Austin became the hero. The double turn was a masterpiece of storytelling, the kind of moment you can't script any better. Now, don't get me wrong. The Chicago street fight with the Legion of Doom and Ahmed Johnson v. the Nation of Domination was wild chaos. But let's be honest, nothing topped Bret and Stone Cold flipping the script and changing wrestling forever. Some fans swear the Iron Man match is overrated. Others call Austin Bret the greatest WrestleMania bout ever. Where do you land? Drop your pick. Let's see who really wins this round. WrestleMania 14, Austin 316 becomes champion. If WrestleMania 13 made Steve Austin a star, WrestleMania 14 crowned him the guy. The main event? Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship, with Iron Mike Tyson standing in as special enforcer. And let's be real, the stakes here couldn't have been bigger. Austin was on fire. The anti-hero fans had been begging to see on top. Shawn Michaels was already a legend, but he was also wrestling through a brutal back injury that would soon sideline him for years. And Tyson, well, Tyson was the wild card. Was he with DX? Was he neutral? Or was he waiting to swing the knockout punch on anyone? From the opening bell, the match was gritty, physical. You could see the pain etched on Shawn's face, but somehow he still bumped like only Shawn Michaels could. Austin brought his trademark brawling, stomps, fists, and just enough technical wrestling to keep the champ grounded. Tyson circled like a shark, jawing at both men, adding an extra layer of tension every time he leaned toward the ring. And then, the finish. Shawn loads up for sweet chin music. Austin catches the leg, spins him, and boom! Stone Cold Stunner. The building shakes. Tyson slides in, slaps the mat. 1, 2, 3. The crowd in Boston erupts. Austin's the new WWF champion, and the Attitude Era officially kicks into overdrive. Then, in a perfect exclamation point, Tyson knocked out Michaels after the match, revealing he'd been with Austin all along. And let's not forget, Undertaker versus Kane, a clash between two titans in their first official bout. It had the feud, the build, the betrayal. The match itself was intense, and capped off with 3 tombstones to put Kane down. WrestleMania 15, Austin versus Rock, Round 1. By 1999, you could see the train coming a mile away. The Rock, Vince McMahon's hand-picked corporate champion, draped in designer shirts and smug arrogance. Stone Cold Steve Austin, the beer-swilling rebel who lived to ruin Vince's plans. WrestleMania 15, no DQ, Rock versus Austin. Of course, Vince tried to stack the deck. He strutted down, ready to referee the main event himself. But cue Shawn Michaels and the Commissioner power move. HBK bans Vince and the corporation from ringside. The crowd eats it up. Still, things didn't stay clean. Mankind had earned the right to be ref earlier, but had taken such a beating at the hands of Big Show, he was nowhere to be seen. It was wild and chaotic from start to finish, brawling in the ring, through the crowd, over barricades, and smashing announce tables like it was standard practice. Naturally, Vince couldn't resist sneaking back in to tilt the match in Rock's favor, first by distraction, and then by knocking out the ref and going to town on Stone Cold. It was no disqualification after all. It looked like the fix was in, until Mankind appears from nowhere, nails Vince, and flipped the momentum. The ending was classic Stone Cold. After surviving a rock bottom and avoiding the people's elbow, Austin reverses a second attempt into a Stone Cold Stunner. 1, 2, 3. Austin celebrates with a beer bath, middle fingers high, and for good measure, a stunner to Vince. Because why not? We've had Tyson, McMahon run-ins, and Austin beer baths. If you could only keep one Attitude Era Mania on your shelf, 11 through 15, what survives? Convince me. WrestleMania 16, the ladder war that changed tag wrestling. The main event was unlike anything before it, a fatal four-way with a McMahon in every corner. It had soap opera drama for days, but honestly, that all kind of overshadowed the actual wrestling. The bout fans actually remember? The triangle ladder match for the tag team titles. The Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. 3 teams, 3 different styles, and 3 favorite weapons. Dudleys had the tables, Hardys had the daredevil dives, and Edge and Christian brought the chairs. And the smug attitude. The seeds had been planted months earlier at No Mercy. The Hardys versus Edge and Christian put on such a show-stealing ladder match, they got a standing ovation. Add the Dudleys' chaos to the mix, and the stakes felt massive. From the opening bell, it was carnage. Nobody played it safe. Ladders turned into weapons. Tables exploded. Every move looked like it shaved years off someone's career. And somehow, it just kept escalating. Take your pick of the highlights. Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the side of a ladder from a turnbuckle. Bubba delivering a 3D off a ladder. Jeff climbing a skyscraper-sized ladder in the aisle and hitting a swanton bomb that folded Bubba Ray in half. And the finish, Edge smashing Matt Hardy off a table suspended between two ladders. Edge and Christian pull down the belts, become tag champs, and instantly cement themselves in history. The crowd knew they had just seen something new, something wild, something that changed the landscape forever. WrestleMania 17, the greatest show of them all. One of the best WrestleManias ever. A lot of people consider number 17 without hesitation. The card was stacked and delivered. The Rock vs. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Vince vs. Shane McMahon, Triple H vs. The Undertaker, Kurt Angle vs. Chris Benoit. Everyone has their favorite match, but TLC 2 somehow raised the bar again. The Hardys, Dudleys, Edge, and Christian. 3 teams willing to put their bodies on the line. Tables, ladders, chairs, and sheer madness. The first TLC match had already been a car crash masterpiece, but this was a demolition derby with no breaks. The spots are burned into wrestling memory. Bubba Ray and Matt Hardy shoved off a ladder, crashing through 4 tables like human wrecking balls. Devon and Christian dangling from the belts, swinging like terrified piñatas. And Jeff Hardy swinging from the titles in midair before Edge launched a spear off a ladder to cut him in half. That one clip has lived on highlight reels for over 20 years, and for good reason. And just when the chaos couldn't get any wilder, enter the reinforcements. Spike Dudley drilled Christian through a table. Lita smashed Spike with a chair and tore her shirt off, popping the crowd. Rhino speared anything that moved, then literally carried Christian up the ladder on his back to grab the belts. By the end, nobody cared who actually won. The miracle was that anyone could still walk. But the record books state Edge and Christian retained, cementing themselves as the undisputed kings of carnage. WrestleMania 18, Icon vs. Icon. The match that stole the show wasn't for a title. It wasn't even about wins and losses. The Rock vs. Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Icon vs. Icon. The face of the 80s wrestling boom versus the most central figure of the Attitude Era. When 2 megastars collide, there's always the risk it won't live up to the hype. But this was a masterclass in crowd control. The crowd in Toronto made it electric before the bell even rang. Hogan, supposedly the heel, walked out in his NWO black and white and got cheered like a hero. The place shook. Then babyface Rock came out to a mixed reaction. The energy flipped the script, and instead of fighting against it, they leaned right in. They didn't need a million moves, just stares, taunts, and perfectly timed comebacks. Hogan hulked up, cupped his ear. Rock fired back with his trademark swagger. 2 icons making 68,000 people hang on every breath. For a moment, it looked like Hogan might actually do it. Big boot, leg drop, the old formula. The crowd bit. But The Rock kicked out, stormed back, and after 2 rock bottoms and a people's elbow, finally put Hogan down. Then came the moment of respect between the two, until Hall and Nash stormed in to lay the beatdown on Hogan. Instead, Hogan stood tall, fighting them off with Rock at his side. The crowd ate it up like it was the main event, because in their hearts, it was. WrestleMania 19. HBK steals the show. This card had plenty of star power. Lesnar versus Angle for the WWE title with that infamous shooting star press. Rock versus Austin in the final chapter of their legendary rivalry. But everyone loves a comeback story. It was HBK's first WrestleMania in 5 years. And across the ring was Jericho, the cocky student trying to surpass the master. The build was personal. Jericho mocked Shawn's old outfits, copied his moves, and vowed to retire him again. From the opening lockup, the story was crystal clear. Michaels showing flashes of his vintage brilliance. Jericho desperate to prove he could out-HBK the Heartbreak Kid. The action matched the drama. Jericho punished Shawn's back, slapping on the walls of Jericho outside the ring like a predator testing his prey. Shawn fired back with a perfect moonsault, reminding everyone the showstopper wasn't done yet. The momentum swung wildly. Jericho even drilled HBK with his own sweet chin music. But Shawn had one more trick. In the closing moments, he flipped out of a back body drop, rolled Jericho up, and snatched the win. Vintage HBK, stealing the spotlight when it mattered most. In the aftermath, Jericho acted like he was going to shake HBK's hand in respect, then low-blowed him and shoved him to the mat, solidifying himself as the sore loser fans loved to hate. We're closing in on one of the most emotional endings ever. But before we get there, quick poll. Which era hit harder for you, Attitude or Ruthless Aggression? I want to see a comment war. WrestleMania 20, a story 18 years in the making. Triple H versus Shawn Michaels versus Chris Benoit for the World Heavyweight Championship. The payoff to one of the best long-term builds WWE had done in years. Benoit had long been the workhorse, respected but never crowned with the big one. That all changed when he won the 2004 Royal Rumble, earning his title shot. And even though he was on SmackDown, with his best friend Eddie Guerrero holding the WWE Championship, Benoit jumped brands, inserting himself into Raw's blood feud between Michaels and Triple H. That feud was already legendary. HBK and the Game had been at each other on and off for years. The build to this one was fierce. They'd fought to 2 straight draws with Triple H hanging onto the title by inches. Adding Benoit made it combustible. Right from the start, it was chaos. Strikes, counters, submissions, and suplexes flying in every direction. The Garden was split. HBK loyalists, Triple H's fans, and those desperate to see Benoit finally climb the mountain. And as the match wore on, you could feel the tide turning Benoit's way. One of the loudest moments came when Benoit reversed Triple H's pedigree into the sharpshooter, only for Michaels to blast him with sweet chin music at the last second. It was that kind of roller coaster. The finish was unforgettable. Triple H went for one more pedigree, but Benoit countered, locked in the crippler crossface, and refused to let go. The champion tapped. Madison Square Garden erupted. And then came the image that defined the night. Eddie Guerrero joining his real-life best friend in the ring. Both men holding their titles high, tears in their eyes. For one shining moment, wrestling felt real.